The air in Abuja was warm as the plane touched down. Bernard stared at the window, eyes steady but mind racing. After 6 years of studying medicine abroad, he was finally back home. But his return wasn't just about family or celebration, it was about finding love. Real love. His father, Chief Donald, had everything, wealth, houses, power, but Bernard had always feared one thing, that he would marry someone who only wanted him because of the Donald name. So he had made a bold decision. Before anyone knew he was back, he would pretend to be just a regular man. Not Bernard Donald. Just Bernard. The next day, he arrived at Donald Industries dressed in a faded security uniform. His face looked clean and new to the guards. They gave him a tired nod, thinking he was just another recruit. No one knew he was the son of the company's owner. He was assigned to the back gate. It was quiet there. But Bernard didn't mind. He wanted to observe, and this was the perfect place. His plan was simple: walk like an ordinary staff. Watch. Listen. And see who people really were when they didn't think someone important was looking. By noon, he had already seen the 4 women his father had mentioned in their last phone call. Sandra walked into the building with a file in her hand. She wore plain clothes and simple shoes. She didn't smile much, but she greeted every staff she passed. Amanda arrived shortly after. She stepped out of her car slowly, flipping her long weave like she was on a runway. She didn't greet anyone. Precious came later, chewing gum loudly and yelling into her phone about how she wouldn't waste her beauty on a broke man. Then Ella, tall, flashy, and full of attitude. She looked at the cleaners like they were invisible. Bernard was confused. None of them acted exactly how he expected. Sandra was quiet, but maybe pretending. Amanda was loud, but could be honest. Precious and Ella. They both acted like they already owned the place. He sighed. Finding true love would not be easy. That evening, as Bernard stood at the back gate, Amanda walked past him. She didn't even look at him. Precious laughed behind her. These security men SEF. Always standing like statues. No ambition, she said loud enough for him to hear. Sandra came out a few minutes later with her bag. She didn't speak, but she glanced at him and gave a short nod. Ella passed last. She wrinkled her nose. Smells like sweat, she said under her breath. Bernard looked up at the sky. Maybe this plan was a mistake. Or maybe, it was the only way to see the truth. As he walked back to the small security room that night, Bernard kept thinking. Maybe the good ones don't always shine the brightest at first. And maybe the loudest ones are hiding something. One thing was certain, someone was lying. But who? The sun was already rising over the company compound when Bernard arrived at his post. His uniform was still rough, and the dusty boots didn't make things easier. But he wasn't here to impress anyone with clothes. He was here to understand hearts. At exactly 7:30 a.m., Ella's car pulled into the company gate. The sound of her music filled the compound before the engine even stopped. She stepped out, adjusting her designer bag. The security at the front gate saluted. She didn't respond. As she walked past Bernard's corner, she gave him a look. "Don't sleep on duty, oh," she said, almost smiling, before strutting off like a queen. It felt like a joke, but somehow sharp. Bernard didn't know how to place her. Was she flirting? Mocking him? Testing him? He shook his head. The confusion was just beginning. Later that morning, Amanda called the receptionist to help her carry her handbag upstairs. When the girl hesitated, Amanda raised her voice. "I don't work here to carry my own bag. Do you know who my father is? Do you know who I am?" Everyone turned to look. Bernard heard it from the other end of the compound. But within minutes, Amanda's voice softened. She was in the executive waiting area, talking to someone on the phone. "Of course, Chief. I wait for Bernard as long as it takes. I'm ready to be a good wife." The change in tone was fast. Too fast. Bernard, hiding his identity, kept his face still. He was beginning to understand that behavior was different when people wanted something. But still, was she pretending? Or was she just stressed? Later that day, Precious strolled into the canteen and ordered food. She sat at a table near the glass window and took endless selfies with her meal. When she left, she didn't clear her tray. She didn't say thank you. She just walked off and said loudly, "Someone else will do it. That's why they're paid." Bernard watched silently. Then, as he returned to his post, Sandra came walking down the hall. She had a bag of oranges and a small bottle of water. She wasn't smiling. She didn't say anything poetic. She just stopped and dropped 2 oranges on the stool beside Bernard. "It's hot today," she said simply, then walked off before he could even say thank you. He stared at the oranges. What did it mean? A habit? A gesture? Or another game? Bernard frowned. No answers yet. Only more questions. Inside Chief Donald's private office, the pressure was rising. "I want my son to marry one of these girls soon," Chief Donald said to Mr. Raymond, his temporary company representative. "Time is not waiting." Mr. Raymond nodded politely. "Yes, sir. They are all fine ladies." But what Chief didn't know was that Mr. Raymond had his own secrets, one that involved late-night meetings with Amanda behind closed doors. Amanda, who claimed to be patient and loyal, had been spending extra hours in Raymond's office every Friday. "Just help him with documents," she always said. But rumors were growing. And Bernard, still in uniform, had no idea yet. At the end of the day, Bernard sat outside the small guardroom. His body was tired, but his mind refused to rest. Ella had been friendly today. Amanda had been dramatic. Precious was too full of herself. Sandra had given him oranges, but no smile. Each of them had side that didn't make sense. Was anyone truly real? He thought of removing the disguise, ending the act, and walking into his father's office as Dr. Bernard Donald. But something held him back. The truth was not yet clear. He had to dig deeper. That night, while walking past the east wing of the compound, Bernard stopped. He heard whispers. It was Amanda's voice. Soft, low. "You said you loved me, Raymond. And I'll be Mrs. Donald soon. Don't forget our deal." Bernard held his breath. Deal? What deal? He moved closer to the wall, but the voices faded into silence. The door shut gently. He stepped back. Something was wrong. Very wrong. But he couldn't prove anything, yet. The next morning, the compound was bubbling with whispers. The staff were gossiping about Amanda and Mr. Raymond. Nobody had facts, just fragments of strange sightings. Amanda in Raymond's office late at night, Raymond escorting Amanda to her car when no one was around. Bernard stood quietly by the gate, pretending not to hear. But every word settled in his chest like a stone. "No, she so be fine pass, but he get as he be," one of the cleaners murmured. "Always forming madam. Wetin concern her with Raymond when she dey say no oga pikin she go marry," another added. Bernard kept his face blank, but his thoughts were racing. Is this the same person who says she's waiting for me? But again, he reminded himself, gossip was not proof. He needed to be sure. At lunch hour, Precious stormed out of the main building, talking loudly on her phone. "What do you mean you need transport money again?" "I'm not your mother," she snapped, her voice echoing across the yard. She passed Bernard and, without warning, threw a used tissue toward a nearby bin. It missed. She looked at Bernard. "Pick that," she ordered, not even pausing to hear his reply. He bent, picked the tissue, and dropped it in the trash. Then she turned back. "You'll understand when I become the wife of Chief Donald's son." She winked and walked off. Bernard's hand balled into a fist, but he quickly relaxed it. This was exactly what he came to see, raw character, not rehearsed smiles. Later that evening, Sandra was walking past the gate when she paused and handed Bernard a folded piece of paper. No smile. No words. He waited till she was out of sight before opening it. It was a short note, written in neat handwriting. I noticed your shoe is torn. I kept a small sewing kit in the old security locker beside the restroom. You can fix it there. Bernard blinked. She had noticed something that even he had ignored. Noticed and helped. No flirting. No boasting. No expectations. Just quiet action. That unsettled him more than anything. That night, Bernard sat on the bench near the back of the building when he heard two familiar voices, Ella and Amanda. I swear, Ella, if this Bernard guy shows up and I don't get him, I'll go mad, Amanda said, laughing. Ella replied, at least your makeup game is strong. Precious is forming hard to get, but when money enter matter, she go calm down. Amanda giggled. If only this company wasn't full of bush girls. That security guard SCF, what's his name again? Bernard or Bola? Ella chuckled. He's not bad, sure. But very invisible. Sandra too, always pretending to be humble. She probably has a shrine at home praying to marry Bernard. The two of them laughed again and walked off. Bernard sat in the shadows, eyes wide open. So now they were talking about him, even though they had no idea who he truly was. The irony was almost funny. Almost. The next day, Amanda arrived with breakfast in a pink basket. Hi, she said sweetly, placing it in front of Bernard. I saw you always standing out here. Eat, you need strength. Bernard looked up, unsure how to respond. She smiled, leaned closer. Your eyes are nice. Has anyone told you that? Then she walked away. He stared at the food. It was peppered rice and fried chicken, fresh, hot. He didn't eat it. Not because it wasn't good. But because it was too late. He had already had too much. As the compound quieted in the evening, a new face appeared, Chief Donald's old friend, Mr. Azuka. He came for a short visit and had no idea Bernard was disguised. He shook hands with the guard as he passed. Then paused in front of Bernard. You remind me of someone, he said slowly, narrowing his eyes. Bernard felt his stomach turn. Who, sir? He asked, trying to deepen his voice. Mr. Azuka stared for a few seconds, then smiled. Maybe one of those movie actors. The ones that always pretend they are not rich. He laughed and walked off. Bernard breathed out slowly. That was close. Too close. That night, Bernard finally made a decision. It was time to get closer. He would start speaking to each of the ladies more intentionally, without giving away his real identity. Not just watching them, but testing them. And the first person on his list. Sandra. He knocked softly on the staff hallway door the next morning and found her carrying papers. Hi, he said. She looked at him, puzzled. I was wondering if you'd like to talk, he said, during your lunch break. Just a conversation. She tilted her head. Why? He smiled. Because, you're different. She stared at him for a moment. Then slowly nodded. I'll think about it. As she walked off, Bernard didn't know what scared him more, her quiet strength or the storm he knew was coming when the others found out. At exactly 12:45 p.m., Bernard stood under the mango tree near the back fence, wiping his palms on his trousers. He wasn't sure if Sandra would show up, but he waited anyway. By 1 p.m., he had started giving up when he saw her approach him with a lunchbox. I said I'd think about it, Sandra said quietly, and I did. She handed him the box. No talk. Just eat. You've been watching people too much. It's your turn to eat and listen. Bernard couldn't help but smile. He opened the box. It was plain jollof rice, with just a boiled egg. Simple. Humble. Real. As he ate, Sandra sat on a low bench beside the fence, not saying much. After a long pause, she said, everyone wants something from somebody. But sometimes, you just give because it feels right. That sentence hit Bernard like a slap wrapped in silk. Later that day, Amanda burst into the main office with stormy eyes. Apparently, someone had accidentally deleted a file she prepared for Mr. Raymond. She pointed fingers everywhere, even at Sandra. You were on that system. If you think cooking for the security man will get you favor, think again, she hissed. Sandra said nothing. Bernard, who was sweeping outside, caught the whole drama. From his angle, he noticed something Amanda didn't. Mr. Raymond was watching from upstairs, hidden behind the blinds, his expression unreadable. And then he disappeared into his office. Interesting, Bernard thought. Something about Raymond and Amanda wasn't adding up. And now Amanda was losing her temper at Sandra. That wasn't going to end well. Later that evening, Bernard walked behind the warehouse area when he heard a low voice. I don't care if he's the chief's son or the president's cousin. When I marry him, that boy from the gate won't even be allowed to stand in front of my house. It was Ella, speaking to someone on the phone. She paced while talking, her heels clicking sharply against the concrete. Useless people everywhere. Especially that Sandra girl. Always pretending like she's holy. Then she laughed bitterly. She thinks she's smart. Let her try me. Bernard stood behind the wall quietly, his heart thumping. So that's how she really feels. She, too, was planning a war. That night, rain poured heavily. Staff scrambled to leave early, and the compound was nearly empty. Bernard was soaked, still standing by the gate when Sandra returned with an umbrella. You should go home, she said. I stay on site. She paused. You'll catch cold. He shrugged. I'm used to it. She stood beside him in silence for a few minutes, the umbrella barely covering both of them. Then she said, some people wear polished shoes but walk with dirty hats. Bernard turned to look at her. Why do you say that? She didn't answer. She just nodded toward the main building where Amanda and Raymond were laughing under the same umbrella as they exited. Their eyes met briefly. Something silent passed between them, knowledge unspoken. The next day, Amanda arrived at the compound earlier than usual, holding breakfast again, this time, 2 packs. One for Bernard, and one for Raymond. She gave Raymond his in private. Then marched to the gate and offered Bernard the other. I made this myself. Bernard looked into the pack, fried yam, eggs, and suya. Thank you, he said. She smiled. I just feel like you're different. He nodded slowly. You said the same to Mr. Raymond last week. She froze. What? I overheard it. I'm a security guard, remember? I see things. Amanda laughed awkwardly. You're funny. She turned and walked away, but the shake in her step didn't go unnoticed. That afternoon, Bernard was cleaning the front desk when Precious walked in, dressed in bright yellow with matching heels. She didn't even acknowledge him. Move, she said coldly. He stepped aside. After she dropped a document with the receptionist, she turned and whispered to him, I hope you enjoy all this your fake calmness. When the owner's son returns, people like you will be replaced. Then she added with a fake smile, but don't worry, I'll get you a job washing my dog. She left laughing. Bernard swallowed the words forming in his throat. Not today. Not yet. He needed to stay invisible. For now. Later that evening, Chief Donald came to the compound unexpectedly. He rarely visited the company without informing staff. But this time, he went straight into his son's office, which had been cleaned and sealed since Bernard's return. Nobody knew why. 10 minutes later, he walked out, looking unusually thoughtful. Then, out of nowhere, he asked the security supervisor. Who's the young man by the gate? The man hesitated. Bernard, new recruit. Quiet guy. Chief Donald nodded slowly. That name sounds familiar. He didn't say another word. He entered his car and left. Bernard, watching from a distance, felt something shift in the air. The mask was starting to crack. And once it did, everything would change. The next day at the office started like every other, calm on the outside but noisy behind closed doors. Sandra entered with her usual calmness, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, holding a flask of tea. She greeted everyone, including Bernard at the gate. He nodded back, watching her quietly. Suddenly, Precious walked past the front door and hissed. "Madam Caretaker. Always forming scent. We go see who laugh last." Sandra ignored her, but Amanda, already seated in the reception, rolled her eyes and muttered, "All this forming humility, no strategy." As if to prove her point, Amanda stepped outside and handed Bernard a sachet of water with a sweet smile. "Stay hydrated, dear," she said sweetly. Sandra raised a brow but said nothing. Bernard accepted it without comment, but his eyes followed Amanda as she walked back inside. He was starting to piece it all together, slowly. Chief Donald sat at his private lounge that evening with a glass of palm wine, but he wasn't drinking. He was deep in thought. He remembered the name Bernard. The young gatekeeper's face looked oddly familiar. But he couldn't place it. Then again, his son was far away in the US. Still finishing his medical degree. Wasn't he? He called his secretary. "That new gate boy. What's his surname?" The secretary hesitated. He didn't submit full papers. Says he's temporary. But his name is Bernard." The chief's face tightened. "Bernard what?" "Just Bernard, sir. That's all the file says." He caught the call. A storm had started brewing in his chest. Later that week, Ella sat behind the staff kitchen drinking Coke when she overheard Amanda on the phone. "I'm not stupid, Raymond. If I don't secure this marriage now, Sandra will beat me to it." "Yes. I've been feeding the fool. What else do you want me to do?" Ella's ears perked up. "Marriage. To who?" Amanda turned around, startled. Ella stepped forward, hands folded. "I knew you were desperate. But I didn't know you were this scared." Amanda tried to walk away, but Ella blocked her path. "You're eyeing the chief's son too?" Amanda smirked. "Don't act innocent. I know why you started dressing like a senator's daughter." Both girls stared each other down, fake smiles stretched over their faces like rubber bands about to snap. That night, Bernard was helping the generator technician near the back fence. Sandra walked up with puff-puff in a paper wrap. "For you," she said. "Eat before you collapse." Bernard smiled. "Thanks." They talked briefly about her mother, who sold fruits at Wool's Market, about how Sandra worked 3 jobs before she got this office gig, about how kindness doesn't cost anything. Bernard, without thinking, blurted out, "You're the type of woman any man would be lucky to marry." Silence. Sandra blinked. Then smiled. "That's sweet. But don't let Amanda hear you." Bernard nodded awkwardly. He realized he had let his guard slip. And Amanda had been watching, from a window above. Amanda stormed into Raymond's office the next morning. "That boy is getting bold." Raymond was busy on his laptop. "He's just a gatekeeper," he said. "Exactly. And Sandra is smiling at him like he's made of gold. You better talk to her or I will." Raymond finally looked up. "You're losing focus." Amanda's face darkened. "Don't forget our deal. You promised to back me if I helped cover up your fire." Raymond hissed. "Lower your voice." Amanda leaned closer. "Then fix this. Make sure Sandra stays far from Bernard. Or else." She didn't finish. But the warning was loud and clear. That evening, Bernard sat behind the security post with his phone pressed to his ear. "Uncle turned," he whispered. "I think it's time." A voice replied, "Are you sure?" Bernard looked toward the office building. "I need to shake things up a bit. These people are starting to reveal their real faces." His uncle paused. "All right. Just don't show your hand too early." Bernard smiled faintly. "Don't worry. The game has just begun." The next day, staff gathered for the company's monthly staff award. Chief Donald himself showed up, a rare occasion. Just before the award started, Chief Donald tapped the HR manager. Include the new gate boy in the list of recognitions. I want to see how staff respond. The manager looked confused, but obeyed. When Bernard's name was called as most punctual new staff, he stepped forward. He stood tall, calm, quiet, dressed in his faded uniform. But something in his posture, something in his confidence, made a few people frown. Ella squinted at him. Sandra looked surprised. Amanda. She froze. Chief Donald stared hard at him. Then whispered to himself. Who are you really? But just when Bernard thought he had seen it all, one shocking encounter changed everything. Watch out for part 2.